This tutorial is on how I made my wedding dress. My name is Ayomide, and some months ago I got married and I made my wedding dress. So guys, in this tutorial I have decided to share how I did that from the cutting up until the sewing. Okay, so these are what I used. I added lace fabric, I had a bridal satin fabric, I had my lining, my zipper, bra cups, button loops and buttons, had pearls, pearl setting machine, interfacing, lots of pins, your pattern drafting tools, sewing machine, and a lot of other essentials. In the last video before this one, I explained in details all the material that I used and also the number of yards that I got for each of these materials. So if you haven't seen that video, I would recommend you go see it. It is just the video before this one. So now let us jump right into the tutorial. This is the lace that I got. Like I said earlier, I have a video before this one where I spoke in details about all the materials and the number of yards that I got for each of those materials. So that is the lace. I've also got my bridal satin. This is different from a regular satin, even in the length. It is 120 inches. I've also got it here, and I also have lining too. I have got my lining here too. It is very different from the bridal satin in both texture and quality. You cannot compare. All right. So, and that there is the view. I will be making a separate video for my bridal view. Now let us jump right into the pattern drafting. For my pattern, I have gone on to mark out my lines just the way we do for the basic bodice. I've got both the front and the back on this pattern paper. I have my chest line that runs through the front and the back. I've got the bust point line, the under bust, and the waist. So guys, for this wedding dress, I wanted something comfortable, something breathable. So I just went for a bustier, which I know would be comfortable for me. I'm not exactly a fan of corsets. I'm a size 6, so I'm not really a fan of corsets. Okay, so moving on, guys, it's now time to work on it. For my neck width, I've got about 2.5 inches, 2.2 inches for the neck width, and that's because I want to have a high collar. So here I'm going on to mark my dart line. I mark 3 inches on the waistline and 3.5 inches on the bust line. Next, I'll take some inches to the side. So on the waistline, I marked 1.5 inches away. On the under bust, I marked about 1.7 inch away, and I'm connecting those points together. Next, I'll go on to draw in my under bust curve, just the same way we do our bustier. So whatever works for you. Moving on, I'll be getting the midpoint of the shoulder slant. I'll connect that point to the chest line. Once I'm done with that, I'll be placing my horizontal measurement. What I have on the chest line is the exact measurement for a quarter of my bust. But for the waistline, I will need to factor in the dart allowance, which I added. So a quarter of my waist measurement plus the dart allowance is what I will be marking on the waistline. Thereafter, I'll connect all of those points together. And after that, I will be marking in 1 inch for the bust dart. I'll also connect that to the chest point, to the bust point line. So once I'm done with that, I will need to work on the neckline. For this, I'll mark a line upward from the neck point. I'll mark 1.5 inch on that line. After that, I'll be creating a curve so that we don't want that sharp edge. We want a curve around that neck point area. Once I'm done with this, I will need to determine the depth of my neckline. Okay, so first thing, I'll be marking about 5.5 inches downward. I'm using this pen because this is not the end of the neckline. So I'll just rule a dotted line. On that line from the center front, I would mark about 2.5 inches. Okay, so I'll use my pen to trace the neckline, the shape of the neckline out. Next thing, I would also mark another depth. This time around, I'm going for 7 inches. Then I will create a sweetheart neckline shape. Once I'm comfortable with what I have, I'll use my marker pen to now mark this out. At this point, I am done with the front. It is now time to begin working on the back pattern. As for the back, the first thing I did was to raise the center back and also the neck point. And just like I did for the front, I marked 1.5 inch on the neck area. So for the center back, and then I also did the curve too. For the center back, initially I marked 1 inch, but I later came back to correct it to 1.5 because I didn't like the shape it was given. So I made it equal length. So here I marked 1 inch initially, but later on I corrected that to 1.5 along the center back. And that is what I'm doing right here. Okay guys, moving on. The back would have the parts that would carry buttons and the parts that would bear the zipper. Okay, so and I need to work on that. What I did first was to mark out the area that will carry the button, which would also be like the yoke. And because this is for a church wedding, I didn't want it to be too revealing, so I just went for about 6 inches downward. Next, I marked 1 inch on that line extension. That would serve as the zipper allowance for the parts that will carry the zipper. Thereafter, I went on to mark my half-inch allowance for the parts that will carry buttons and the button loop. Okay, so this is the zipper allowance and this is the part for the buttons. I also went on to mark out the darts and place my vertical measurement too. So the back had no issues. So I lost the video where I recorded the other parts, but this is the back, my zipper allowance, my button stand allowance, and I've got both the back and the front. So I'll be cutting this out and then we'll move on to the skirt parts, which I think is the main work. So guys, a little tip here. In order to prevent gaping along the neckline, I'll be taking out some darts. So I'm just ruling a line and I'll measure about 1/4 of an inch on either side of that line. I'll draw it down, mark out my darts, and I'll then close the darts. After closing it, I'll be reshaping the neckline because it is already altered. Moving on to the skirt parts, I have this basic skirt pattern that I've gone on to draft out. Bear in mind that I've also added my side seam allowance. The length of the skirt is about 58 inches. Because this is going to be a long and flowing wedding dress, I made it up until that length. So here's a calculation. My waist to floor is 44 inches. I also factored in the inch of the shoe I would be wearing, which is 3 inches. I added an extra length of 10 inches and then I added another extra 1 inch for hemming allowance and all that, and that brought it to 58 inches. Okay, so it is this skirt pattern I will be using to cut out the down part of my dress. Because of the length of the skirt part, I had to cut on the floor. I folded my fabric slightly on the bias grain just to give it some flow. Here I am pinning my pattern onto the fabric. After that, I marked half an inch above the waistline. Bear in mind that I have already added a side seam sewing allowance on the pattern already. After doing that, I extended the hemline so that I can work on the mermaid shape. On that line, I marked my extension and I marked about 12 to 15 inches now. Next, I measured about 22 inches downward from the waist and connected it to the extension that I marked on the hemline. After doing all that, I measured from this point here to the hem and I placed that measurement on the extension of the mermaid I have here. I marked it down, that's a measurement, and drew a curve so that that place will not be pointed, it won't be sharp. Okay, and I am done with my skirt pattern. Very easy. So here is a close-up video of what I did. You can see the extension that I marked. You can see the curve that I made. Okay, you can see it. And this is what it looks like. I would proceed to cut this out and then we can now work on the back. As for the back, I've also folded my fabric into two, and this was really where the importance of buying a fabric that was 120 inches long came into play because of the train at the back. This is me here placing the front onto the back. First, I am marking my zipper allowance. I marked about 1.5 inch for the zipper allowance. I marked it up until 18 inches where the train is going to start from. So you just need to follow what I'm doing carefully. After that, I extended the hem towards the center back. So I'm trying so hard not to mark so much on the fabric because of the color. On that hem, I then marked from that hem rather, I also marked the length of my train. So I decided to just go for the full length of the fabric, the remaining fabric that was remaining. I just used that as the length. It was about 45 inches if I'm still correct. So that was what I used. So I just marked that there. After marking that, on this line I drew, I went on to mark the back extension. I marked about 20 inches and then I started connecting. So from here, I connected it to where my zipper allowance stopped. After that, I took the length all the way down to the end. As for the side, I went on to draw a curve that would meet the train that I marked. Okay, so the side will be curvy, all right. And here is a close-up video of all the alterations I did for the back. This was a zipper allowance I added. can see where the zip allowance ended and the extension that I did initially before taking the extension all the way down to the train. And this was the curve that I did from the side. Okay, after this is done, I went on to cut it out. And guys, this was how I cut out my wedding dress, at least the most part, excluding the sleeve. But for the body of the dress, this was how I cut it out. My next video would be on how I stitched all this together. This is me here trying out the gown. I wasn't done here, but this is me trying it out. I loved the way the neckline came out to be. If you want to see more of this wedding tutorials video, please let me know in the comment section. Okay, this was me here also trying out the lace that I had already cut out and added pearls on to see how it was going to come out. So if you want to see more of this video, please let me know in the comment section. Let me know you found this tutorial helpful. Once again, my name is Ayomide and see you all in the next video. Goodbye, stay blessed.